The aim of YouthInc is to support young people and young adults in the youth justice system or in and around the criminal justice system using their own lived experience. So my personal background is I'm an ex-service user who served more than 16 years in prison and worked in the sector for 16 years. One of the things that I realised is that young people who come into the criminal justice system didn't relate to everybody within the criminal justice system. So when they were attending programs, there was disengagement or they weren't engaging with services. I did the same thing as a young person. My mates have done it. There's people still doing it, and the aim was to get young people involved in the services they use, but also to shape and change those services so they can meet the needs of the young people rather than services being created without input from the users themselves. I think trauma and mental health for young people is something that they experience every day, and it's not recognised but always by young people. I think sometimes when we use clinical language, certain type of words, particularly around clinical things like mental health or trauma, just saying it sometimes doesn't go through to a young person. So what we did is that we asked young people to design a mental health program to give and deliver to other young people that they could deliver themselves. And the aim was to get young people to recognise what mental health is. It's not a scary thing, neither is trauma. We all deal with trauma day-to-day basis. So we got 150 young people to design our Live Trauma program, which gives young people an understanding of what trauma is, how to seek support, and all of it's wrapped around using our lived experience. And what that means is that myself, I'm not a clinical lead, I'm not a qualified psychologist, neither is the team we have or the young people, but what we have got is lived experience of all the things that I feel like a clinical practitioner is going to talk about. I always say, do you know what? For example, if you smoke weed, you know what it feels like to get the munchies. If you don't smoke weed, you can sit there and you can say to me, I know the chemical effects of it, but you don't really know the feeling. So when I talk to young people, for example, young people coming off smoking substances and somebody goes to the munchies, I know exactly what that feels like. I smoked all my life. But I also know what it took me and other people to come off that and how we did it. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a work in progress, and sometimes you fall back, and that's where the trauma, explaining it and talking about it using your lived experience in a very unique way to basically not use jargon language, simplified language that I would use when I was on road, exactly the same language I would use to deliver my projects, which makes sense to young people. So if a young person, for example, carries a knife, my thing is, well, if you're carrying a knife and you see a police officer walking down the road, guarantee your heart's beating. Because mine is, so that's a bit of trauma. You know, you need to recognize that by carrying a knife, it's causing you an emotional effect, which is not natural, which shouldn't happen. So that's how we break down trauma and mental health for young people. Peer navigators are ex-service users, so they've had experience with the criminal justice system. So they've either been in custody, they've been known to the Youth Justice Service. And what we do is that we look for talented young people in that. People who, when I say talented, I'm not talking about young people who want to stop crime, but who've got ambition within their life, but never had an opportunity, somebody to go, do you know what, you don't need no education, you don't need no training, we'll train you, we'll provide you the education, we'll support you all the way through. What we do want is for you to be able to help other young people in the community, help yourself, and help your community. And to do that, what we do is that we take the young people, if they agree to it, they volunteer into our service, they go through a whole volunteer program, which is about 12 weeks. Once they've completed that, they move into, if you like, formal training of understanding trauma, trauma-informed training, safe practices, engagement, facilitation, peer research, how to work. And then eventually they're offered a sessional role to work within us, and that could lead to full-time, part-time, depending where it is. The aim isn't to keep the young person there, the aim is to move that young person along. What they bring for other young people and services is that unique lived experience. So peer navigators meet with the head of service at Southwark Youth Justice Service, they meet with national youth justice policymakers, directors, to look at services and policies and to see if they meet the needs of the services of the people that they're servicing. If it doesn't, then the role of the peer navigators is to work with other young people, look at those services, create, if you like, evidence to say why that's not working, and then feed that back to policymakers to say, look, look, this isn't working. So as an example, I'll use Southwark Youth Justice, recycling bins in every room. So what was happening was that we had young people doing groups. When they wanted to throw rubbish out, they were all going out to throw the rubbish. So it gave young people an excuse to move away. So when the peer navigators looked at that situation, they spoke to other young people and all they said, well, why don't you just put bins in the room and stops people going out?